Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Game Use Podcast by Resolution Photo Matching. I'm your host for today's episode, Will Hamilton, Director of Business Ops and Strategy here at Resolution. And on today's show, we're welcoming on fellow podcaster and host of the TTM cast, Drew Pelto. While Drew's niche is primarily cards and autographs, now he does have some game use that we're going to talk about, but what really stood out to me is at the core, we're chasing the same thing: authenticity, connection, and the closest possible link to the game and the players that we love. Whether that's a card, autograph, or piece of equipment worn in an actual game, it all comes back to preserving the moments that matter. So today we're going to talk about how the hobby has evolved, where it's headed, explore where cards, autographs, and game use memorabilia intersect and where they diverge. Drew, thanks for joining me. I'm excited to have you on for this conversation.
Hey, well, thanks for having me. It's like we were saying in the earlier, or in our kind of before we went on there, I don't know a ton about game use stuff, but I've been around it a little bit at least. Like you said, there's a lot of overlap in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've been around, I believe, collecting since the 1980s. Just the hobby in general, all that stuff gets mixed around. So I'm sure we have some good game use things to talk about. You mentioned some pieces from your collection are game use, even though you have a large set of cards that we'll get to as well. But why don't we just start by hitting on game use? When I throw out the term game used, what's the first thing that you think of?
Jerseys are always the big thing for me because, I mean, every sport obviously has their jerseys and everything, whereas other equipment, it varies a bit. You know, in baseball, you're going to have your bats and your helmets. In hockey, you can have your sticks and skates and helmets. But jerseys are the one thing that is just universal across all of them. And so when somebody says game use, that is instantly exactly what comes to mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it does for a lot of us here too. You mentioned having some game use items in your collection. I assume jerseys are one of them, or what are some high level overview of what you've got?
Yeah, that's the main one, is just a small collection of jerseys. If you ever check out on my website there, I've got my Corey Snyder collection. I collect a lot of his cards and such. And so a couple of years ago, I really didn't have anything in the way of any game use stuff. I picked up a couple pieces here and there, which I can talk a little bit about later, but Snyder was the big one because I just happened to come across a random game use jersey of his up on eBay, and it was an affordable price for me. So I'm like, yeah, I think we got to jump on that one. So it was from his days as the Jackson Generals hitting coach. And so I picked that one up, and I'm like, all right, I'll keep an eye out, see what else I find. And a few months later, somebody had all three jerseys, home, away, and third jerseys from, I think it was the 2011 or 2012 season there. I'm actually wearing one of those right now. That's the home jersey there. But yeah, I came across those, and I'm like, that's a price I can do. So I, talked to the guy and said, hey, if you can hold on to those for about 3 weeks or so, I'm very interested in those. And he's like, yeah, no problem. I'll hang on to them. So pick those up. I've added 2 others of his to my collection there. And yeah, over the time, I've got one of his game use bats as well. And actually, the very first piece that I got was a hockey-related one, well before any of that. And it was Ryan Vandenbush, who was a tough guy for several teams. I know at least Chicago. I think he was with the New York Rangers for a bit. And when I got to meet him, he was with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I happened to have just a regular non-game use jersey with his Vandenbush 14 on the back. And somebody else was signing an autograph for me. He comes over and says, hey, buddy, you want me to sign that for you? I'm like, absolutely. Here's the pen. Just if you could make that to Drew. And I just threw it out there. I'm like, is there any chance I could have one of your sticks? And he's like, yeah, find me after practice. I can't give it to you now or anything. It's about to go on the ice. But yeah, find me afterward. And I wait over by there. He sees me. He tosses his stick up to me. And so I've had that ever since too. And so that was my first one there. And yeah, it gets addictive there. So as you can see with my, 5, 6 now Corey Snyder jerseys as well with it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. When you talk about players and Corey Snyder to be specific, is that someone like you got either a card or an item from Corey Snyder initially and you're like, ooh, I really like this. I want to delve into this further. It's Corey Snyder been a favorite player? And you're like, okay, now I want to hone in on his stuff. How does that fandom and collecting desire work?
I don't remember how I became a fan of Snyder's, but he's been my favorite player ever since probably about 1989 or 90 when I first started following baseball. I remember getting a hat at a local department store there, one of the Cleveland Indians ones, and they had an embroidered autograph on it. So my dad and I sat there digging through them until we found a Corey Snyder one, and he was my favorite player from then on. And yeah, I just kept on collecting his stuff. And when I had the opportunity to add the jerseys in a bat, there, it's like, oh yeah, all right, we'll keep on expanding this then.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I noticed behind your head, that's got to be boxes for cards, right?
Yes.
Are your game use pieces? Do you display them, or where do you keep those?
I have them right now in a closet. I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment, so displaying them is kind of tough to do. So yeah, they're just kind of in the closet right now, just well protected back in there as best I can. But eventually, yeah, I mean, I would love to have them, framed or shadow boxed or something like that.
Yeah, very cool. Well, why don't we start? You talked a little bit about your kind of game use collecting origins, but just collecting in general, your origins. How did that come to be for you?
Would have been right around the same time as that Corey Snyder hat there that I mentioned. So the late 80s, early 90s or so. Well, even if I go back a little bit further, then my dad was a card collector when he was a kid. And I remember him saying that he had I think he said 55 Bowman, the TV style ones were the earliest ones that he had in his collection there. But I know probably about 57 to 64 thereabouts were his big years of collecting there. But eventually he gave away or sold off most of them when he was in high school and college. So he just kind of forgot about it there. But then I come about in the late 80s there, and he's like, oh, yeah, hey, we'll get you some cards there. And actually, the first pack that I remember buying with the intention of buying them, because I've been given some here and there before and stuff, but the first ones I ever bought myself was 1991 Donruss Rack Pack. And right in the middle of there was a Dave Stieb Diamond Kings card, which was great because I was at his no-hitter that he threw in late 1990, happening in Cleveland. And then a couple cards down from that in that pack was the Corey Snyder card there, too. It's like, all right, clearly this was meant to be. So that's what got me into it, and I've just been off and running ever since. It's been, 35 years now? Wow, I feel old all of a sudden. But yeah, 35 years now as a collector, so yeah.
Well, that's cool that you bring up the Dave Stieb no-hitter. We actually have that in common, having attended no-hitters.
Nice.
I've been... Except, it wasn't on the favorable side, but back in 2021, I went to a Seattle Mariners game in which they were playing the Baltimore Orioles, and John Means threw a no-hitter that day, and I was in the attendance, right? I love the Mariners, wanted to see them win, but at some point I'm like, hey, this is history. This is pretty cool. So I didn't mind. I got to say I was there for history. But then I went again 2 weeks later for the Detroit Tigers matchup when they were in town and Spencer Turnbull was starting, and he threw a no-hitter against the Mariners. And that was not as fun. I was like, okay, I've been there, done that. Can I please see my team get a hit in 18 innings of baseball? But yeah, that's life as a Mariners fan. It's okay. But I did see history.
That's how it is with Cleveland, too. I mean, the last no-hitter thrown by anybody for Cleveland was Len Barker's perfect game 3 years before I was born. It's like, they've been no-hit like 6 or 7 times since then. It's like, guys, get it together, man. Come on.
Yeah. How bad can it be to scratch across a hit? Just a little bloop.
Right.
Come on, something. Put it in play. And yeah, the Guardians nowadays, that's kind of their brand of baseball. Scrappy. And oh my gosh, that must have been a ride for you at the end of the regular season when they mounted that comeback to take the Central.
It was. I mean, yeah, just getting to sit and watch that. And I mean, I thought, okay, All-Star break, we're out of it, whatever. I'll just, enjoy it. It was good to see, them get into the playoffs last year. We weren't expecting anything this year. And then all of a sudden, just watching a crazy run like that is always fun. And even, going back to 2016 there with the World Series, you mentioned, being on the wrong side of history there. I flew up to Cleveland the day of Game 7. I knew I wasn't going to be able to get a ticket or anything, but still just being outside the stadium there with a bunch of friends and all that, watching from there. It sucks to lose that one, but it's like, all right, I saw the Cubs from, right outside the stadium snap this, horrifying skid they've been on for over 100 years. Like, all right, I'll give them some respect for that at least.
Yeah, that was a wild game. Were you able to watch it? I assume feeds everywhere. We had a sports bar nearby. I mean, what were the emotions that you remember from that game?
They had a big screen right outside the stadium, so it's a huge video screen. They had the broadcast going over the speakers out there and everything, and just at one point, like around the 4th or 5th inning, when the Tribe was down, it's like, all right, yeah, we might, go and hit up a bar or something, watch the rest of it from there. But then they scratched a couple runs across, like, all right, we'll stick around and watch the rest of it there. And I remember it got to the inning where Rajay Davis later hit the home run, and I had been up since I think I had woken up at 4 a.m. to get on a plane and fly up that day. So I was beat at this point. My feet are killing me, and I told my friends, I'm going to go sit down over on the hill there. And so I have a seat there, and as soon as I start sitting down, they start mounting the hits and everything. And I stand up, they're like, no, you sit down right now. It's like, all right, not moving, not going to jinx this. And I did not get to see Rajay Davis's home run until the next morning, because when it was hit, you could hear something went on over in the stadium, but everyone around me is up on their feet and jumping up and down, and the fireworks go off, and it's like, oh my God, he must have hit it out. And yeah, I finally got to see it the next day there. But yeah, I mean, even being on the wrong side, just the electricity going on through everybody out there was just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Yeah, hopefully someday the Mariners will see the World Series. We almost got to be there for it this year, but yeah, there's something about that energy. Loving that when just the way sports bring people together and create these memories and moments that we truly cherish and remember for a lifetime.
Yes.
And I think collecting is a big part of that. It's a way you can attach yourself to these moments, whether it be a piece of game music memorabilia or cards. And I want to ask a little bit more about, what you collect as cards. I've seen you do a lot of sets, specifically around autographs too. So I guess the large question is, what's your motivation in collecting sets? Does it tie you to specific years, help you remember seasons, players, or are you just kind of a completionist?
For me, it was just kind of it's a little bit of everything, really. I mean, if I look at, for example, my big baseball project is the 1972 Topps baseball set. I'm trying to get as much of that signed as I can. 787 cards in that, and once you include like all of the multiplayer cards, like the league leaders and rookies and such, I think it's 863 autographs it would take to complete the thing, and I'm at about 600 right now. But the reason behind that one, because I don't have any kind of a connection to 1972 for any reason at all. It's the year my dad graduated from college. That's about the only thing you could really come up with there. But back when I was about 10 years old or so, a friend and I were trading cards after church one day, and guy comes over and is like, "Oh, yeah, hey, my kid used to be a big collector. I bet I got some cards I can give you guys." And so he checks and says, "Hey, yeah, you guys going to be here next week?" And yeah, we're going to be. So next week he comes in, he gives us a whole bunch there was just these couple bags of 1981 Donruss cards. It's like, oh, cool. This was, at this point, as a 10-year-old, it's like, this is the oldest cards I had in my collection suddenly at that point. So a couple weeks later, he comes in again. He says, "Yeah, I've got some other older ones here." And we had to figure out among us who was getting which stack and everything. Unfortunately, the stack he wanted and the stack that I wanted were different ones, so that worked out fine. But they were all 1972 Topps cards. And so, yet again, this becomes, the oldest ones in my collection. And it just has such a unique design to that set. I mean, it's got what they call the psychedelic tombstones is the best description I've heard of how those ones look. But I got one of them signed at a Texas Rangers alumni event. It was Ken Suarez, that former catcher, signed it as one of the alumni signers at it. And a couple years later, I'm like, you know what? I should see what I can find here for getting this whole set signed. So I went to the National that year. It was 2014 at this point. It was up in Cleveland. And I started looking around to see what I could find. Found a few for, a buck or two each. And I'm like, all right, let's see where we can go with this. Now here, 11 and a half, 12 years later, I'm over 600 on it. So it was just a lot of fun to work on that. It just has, kind of a connection to, trading as a kid there and everything. And my big hockey project is the 2002-2003 Topps Total set, and I love the Topps Total baseball sets. I love the Upper Deck 40-man sets, all those ones that, they put every single player they could possibly get into those, which I love that. I love having a nice wide variety there, and I'd hope they would do it more for hockey. They only did the 1 year of the hockey set, unfortunately, but I bought a box of it, started getting it signed when I was doing the hotels up in Boston, and like, you know what? I bet I could finish this off, and once again, here we are, 20-some years later, and out of 440 players, I am 2 away from having the entire set kicked. So it's one of those things, like, I've gotten in this far, I have to complete this now, whatever it takes, and it's killing me, but it's been a lot of fun.
And what are the 2 that you're missing?
Paul Correa, who is very tough. I mean, he's, obviously a Hall of Famer, one of the greats of the 90s, and does not do any signings at all. And Jason Allison, of all people, former L.A. King at the time of that set, also played with the Bruins, the Capitals, the Toronto Maple Leafs for a bit. And he owns a film company in Los Angeles, but I tried mailing there, never got anything there. I've tried him in person and never had any luck seeing him or getting him to sign it all. And I had a friend who saw him in Boston. Unfortunately, he didn't have that card with him, or else I would have had that one done too. But I'm always keeping out hope that somebody out there has one for trade.
Yeah. Okay, Paul Correa, Jason Allison. If some listeners out there has a direct line, come on, we got to help Drew out.
Yes, please do.
Good. Well, I want to talk about, got to touch on the TTM cast. Could you tell our listeners, in case they haven't heard of the show, how that all started and what you guys talk about and what they can expect from you over there?
Yeah, well, back in 2019, collector Jeff Baker was looking around and went, hey, why isn't there an autograph podcast going on? He had just gotten back into sending out autograph requests by mail, TTMing as it's called, through the mail, and was like, hey, why doesn't this exist yet? And so he started putting together the TTM Cast podcast. About 2 years into it, I did, or actually about a year into it, I did an interview on it just as a regular guest on it. He brought in a co-host not long after that, and after some differences with that co-host, he contacted me and said, "Hey, you're one of the better interviews I've had. Do you want to come on as just a temporary co-host on here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll give it a shot." And so I stayed on as permanent co-host, and unfortunately, Jeff passed away about 2 years ago after a brief illness, and I've taken the reins of it ever since. So I cover the podcast. I do a column every week on sportscollectorsdaily.com. And yeah, it's just been fun to be able to, meet other collectors through this and get to talk to them, I go to games and stuff. People are like, "Oh, hey, you're the TTM cast guy." It's like, I'm famous sort of part-time. All right, this is cool. So, but yeah, it's just been a lot of fun. We talk about all things related to sports autographs, and we try to touch on a lot of different collecting topics. I know Jeff did a lot wider of a breadth of topics than I tend to do. I try to focus it more on the autographs and TTM, but we cover a little bit of everything whenever we can. And so it's been a lot of fun to work with that. And like I said, being able to connect with the autograph community, the entire collecting community as a whole, really. And yeah, it's just a fun way to get to stay involved in everything.
Yeah, I agree. I really think the collecting community is so helpful, so close knit. The way people will team up and try and help someone, if especially in the game use side, hey, can we try and photo match something for you? Or yeah, on your side, hey, are you looking for something? Can we trade? Kind of complete, my set, complete your set, help each other out. So that's been really fun to see just how that community interacts together. I imagine you're also talking some of the latest trends in the hobby, and that's something we want to touch on here too. Maybe one that we could start with would be the trend of patches, and especially how those kind of an intersection, right, between game used and cards. One of which the other day we just heard they're making a patch for LeBron James celebrating his 23rd season. That'll then be placed in a card. I don't know if it's going to be cut up or if it's just going to be a one of one sort of thing. But as a card collector, are you intrigued by these patches, or if they cut up a jersey and you get a piece of a game used equipment in your card, does that make it more desirable for you, or what are your thoughts on those?
I definitely have mixed thoughts, and it kind of goes back to when the hobby first started getting to putting game used pieces in cards, because I was around, I want to say 1996 or so, when Upper Deck started doing it, and it exploded after that. I know Pacific was the first one to do like a one game used card per pack deal and everything. And at one point, it was kind of like, okay, where do you draw the line on this? Because I believe it was in the game. It's one of the companies, at least. I think in the game, but I also don't want to be totally wrong on this and throw them under the bus accidentally. But whoever it was got the only known pair of George Vezina's goalie pads. And it's like, that is an item that belongs in the Hall of Fame. And they cut it up and put it into cards. And I was just like, you cannot do that with a piece like that. So part of it, I mean, it's kind of cool that, collectors can get a piece of, literally a piece of the game there, and even a piece of something legendary like that. But at the same time, it's like, is nothing sacred? I mean, a piece like that should be in a museum more than anything. But overall, I do like jersey cards. I have a lot of my own. I have, a few patch cards, jersey cards, bat cards, whatever you got in those. And I think it's a great idea, at the very least. Just, there's got to be a line somewhere to be able to preserve a lot of those, legendary items like that.
Yeah, I agree. And that's something we had discussed briefly on our second episode of the podcast with Sherman Chan. And yeah, it's a great way to invite new people into sort of the game use hemisphere. Combine the two. But there's got to be, if we're doing modern jerseys, that's totally fine. But if we're mangling historical equipment, we talked about a Pistol Pete Maravich LSU jersey. That just is painful to hear and see, and hope that's something that does not happen very often here in the future.
You've got to hope that somebody out there has one stashed away in a closet somewhere. It's like, okay, thankfully there's another one out there. Preserve the hell out of that one, please.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Well, have there been other, well, I guess we talk about, at Resolution photo matching, photo matching to help pinpoint your item in history, and also alleviate any concerns about whether it's authentic or not. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean if we can't photo match something that it's not authentic, but it's another good way to kind of authenticate and make sure that there are no bad actors getting away with anything in the hobby. And that's something that, unfortunately, we've seen some bad stories as the hobby grows and bad actors are drawn to see if they can kind of take advantage or make a buck here and there. But that's something that you're concerned with as well, keeping the hobby ethical and pure, and making sure bad actors like that are exposed. Have you seen any cases like that recently, or had any instances in which you've been able to step in and help people out?
I try to when I can. Fortunately, there haven't been many lately, but there was actually, some forgery stuff going on around the Dallas area for a bit. There was a guy who took on a bunch of stuff and said, "Oh yeah, it's I've got a Jurickson Profar. I'm going to do a signing with him, $10 an item." This is back when Profar was the number one prospect in all of baseball, and so a lot of people sent in their cards, balls, all kinds of items to him, and I'd say probably out of 50 items, probably 48 of them were later deemed fakes by the various authentication companies, and the guy went into hiding. Unfortunately, he's has not been able to be held accountable at all for it. And I've run into him at a few places, and I always have a comment saying, "Hey, when are people going to get their money back?" And he does not really appreciate that much. But unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you can really do about that unless you're able to get criminal charges against somebody like that. And this is a bunch of $10 items. Nobody's really going to go to that extent, I don't think, which is understandable, but it also really sucks because, you can nickel and dime people like that and make a killing off it just as much as you can by, having a multi-$1,000 item that's completely fake too. So it's tough. All you can really do is try to expose the bad ones whenever they pop up and just try to help people get their money back, get their items back, and just get things to be made right, and hopefully just keep it from ever happening again.
Yeah, exactly. I think, that's a big challenge. Just once you identify it, call it out, and really do what you can to nip it in the bud. You know, I mentioned there's a lot more, money and notoriety coming into the hobby the last couple of years. Specifically, we're seeing investments. Mr. Wonderful buying the dual Logo Man card, part of an investment group there. And as more people recognize that these, game use pieces and these one-of-one special cards or historically rare cards are incredible assets, do you feel like that's a good thing for the hobby? Do you feel like things can kind of get dangerous there? It might be a little bit too much. What are your thoughts in general on that recent trend?
There's always going to be kind of a gray area on those kinds of things. It's always good to see the hobby grow. It's good to see more people getting involved, but anywhere that there's big money, there's also going to be people that are trying to get their cut of it, whether fairly or unfairly. And all I can really say is, everybody's just got to be able to keep their eyes open, be able to spot problems, and know that if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. And just, it's a tough spot, unfortunately, when you get that much money involved in it. But at the same time, you have to have that money to be able to continue its growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think, and I think a lot of collectors sometimes can see these big numbers and be like, "Oh my gosh, like this isn't for me. How can I ever get involved?" But there are so many, game use pieces that you can find for a lot more reasonable prices, like you did on eBay, or other specifically, groups online, and same with cards too. Not everything is a crazy Logo Man card, right? There's a lot more that are there for the everyday person. So do you have any advice for collectors in general that are looking to start out or enhance their collection?
Best thing is always, collect what you like. Don't collect what's popular or what's valuable or anything like that, because if you get stuck holding something for, 40 plus years, are you going to want to look at something and say, "Yeah, I bought that thinking that guy was going to be really great," and he wasn't? Or do you want to pick one up and say, "Hey, I bought that because that was my favorite player when I was a kid," or something like that? And that was honestly one of the biggest kind of gatekeeping things that's kept me out of game use stuff for a long time, was that I'd look at some of these things, and hockey fights was one of my big ones early on. I used to collect a lot of hockey fight DVDs and everything, and videotapes, and trade them all over the place. And a lot of those guys did jerseys as well. And I'd see a John Cordick game use jersey up there with all these customizations to it that Cordick did himself to make it easier to get out of in a fight or something. And it's like a $2,000, $3,000 price tag on those. And that was, this was, 25 years ago. So it's probably even more than that now. Well more than that, I would imagine. And just looking at that when I was a kid, it's like, I'm never going to be able to get into any of this. This is amazing. But then, you just look around, you find the bargains, you find the ones you like, and you start from there and just kind of work your way up, essentially. So, and that's kind of why I like autograph collecting, especially with TTM collecting. When you're mailing everything out, there's no real price floor to it. There's no real price ceiling to it. You can spend as little or as much money as you want to on it. And I think, honestly, if you look around enough in game used collecting, you can do the same thing. If you look around at, your local ballpark at whatever they're selling in the way of game used stuff, you might be able to find a ball from a game that you went to for, under $50. You might be able to find one from one of your favorite players or something for under $50 from a hit that they had in a game or something. And at the same time, you can get up into those $1 million pieces if you've got that kind of money to throw around too. So it's definitely, there's a wider range of availability out there, and I think that's always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could start with batting gloves, instead of the whole jersey. I mean, there are different pieces, different ways you can take bites at the apple there. I know we talked, you're Corey Snyder, got some game use pieces. I feel like we got to get you down a tangent. So after this, we can have you looking into more game use pieces. Would there be a team that you'd like to collect, or is there anything else that you thought about, like, oh man, it sure would be nice to have a Jose Ramirez game worn jersey or anything that has just kind of crossed your mind?
Snyder's the big one, but I'm always looking for, even like major league stuff of Snyder's. I've only seen a couple of jerseys of his come up from the Indians or any of his other teams, but even those go up into the multiple hundreds there. But I did at least once pick up it was a nameplate off of one of his Cleveland jerseys. So I still find that, something like that, just small things like that are always good. In the hockey world, I wish I could afford like some Borje Salming items, but he was playing back in the 70s and 80s, so a lot of that stuff is really expensive because they're only wearing one or two sets of jerseys per year at that point. Plus he's a Hall of Famer. Plus he's passed away, so that's going to drive the price up even more. But all the Cleveland teams, those are my biggest things, having grown up there and everything. And my wife is a big Colorado Avalanche collector, so anything like that for her would be absolutely cool to get. But I just try to keep it open. If I see something that I like from a player that I like, whether it's a Cleveland guy, whether it's Corey Snyder, whether it's somebody completely different, and like I said, my wife's the Avs fan, so some of hers would be kind of cool to get too. So yeah, just nothing really super specific, but I'm always keeping the eyes open.
Good. Yeah. Have you gotten her any gifts before? Avs cards or any other sort of Avs items?
My very first Christmas present to her actually was a signed puck from Peter Forsberg. So when I got that one, she's like, okay, yep, this is the one right there. So, but yeah, I found that. I was able to get, there's a Nathan McKinnon signed mini helmet that's up there. I'm looking through, there's a case of stuff right over here that I'm trying to look through. I'm like, okay, what else was there? But there was a Gabriel Landeskog signed photo and a couple other items here and there. But those are the big ones right there, were those three, I'd say.
Well, nicely done. It clearly paid off.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We've been together, almost 20 years now. So I did it right, I think.
Yeah.
She said, no, it is 20. Okay, yeah, it is 20. Yeah. So.
20. Yeah. Oh, she's there. Oh, good. Well, that's great. Well, obviously collecting brings us closer to the players and the sports that we follow. And you've had a chance, as you mentioned on your website, there's a lot of good info there to learn more about you, what you collect, the TTM cast, and more. But also documenting your experience over the years through photos and other interactions. Could you share maybe some interesting interactions that you've had? It looks like maybe down at spring training or at other games and events where you've been able to mingle with the players here and there before a game or after a game and such.
Yeah. A lot of, some of the better ones, back when I was in college, I used to visit a lot of the hotels a team stayed at. And with those, you can't go in the hotels or anything like that, which is good. They deserve some degree of privacy there, but hang out outside of them, or even like one of the hotels in Boston that a lot of teams would stay at is connected right into a mall. And so we could just wait around kind of right at the top of the escalators in the mall, and players would come up and you could just, pick them off as they're walking by essentially there. But I remember once the late Brad McCrimmon, who was a longtime defenseman for, God, who did he play with? He was with, most of his career I think was with Calgary, but also played with Detroit and Hartford back in the 80s and 90s. He unfortunately was one of the ones who was killed in the Lokomotiv Yaroslavl plane crash over in Russia back in around 2010, 2011, somewhere in that range. But I remember he would come over and sign, and he was super friendly about it and everything. And one of his favorite things, he would always point out like which cards of his were his favorites and everything. And so finds his 1991 score card where he's really leaning into a slap shot and gets this huge flex on the stick. He's like, that was one of my favorite ones right there. And he signs that one. And another one was his 1990-91 Pro Set card when the original 6 NHL teams were all wearing these throwback unis throughout the entire season. And so they got him wearing that one, and there's like, oh, I like that one too. And I'm like, oh yeah, I got the old jersey on there. And he kind of looks at me, he goes, sweater. I'm like, oh, right, sweater. It's Canadian, of course. So and that's just one of my favorite ones right there. Was that the fact that he's willing to sit there, point out, oh yeah, that's one of my favorite ones. Oh, I like that one too, and some of the stories behind it. So he was always a great one there. But going along with what he said about sweaters, my favorite, the way you can tell an American hockey fan from a Canadian hockey fan is The American Hockey Fan says, our team was hurt when Gretzky ripped his jersey on the boards inside our arena. The Canadian Hockey Fan will say, our organization was hurt when Gretzky ripped his sweater on the dashers inside our own building. So I always remember the McCrimmon thing whenever that comes up. But yeah, there's been a lot of fun experiences with that. Spring training is great because the guys are just getting back on the field. They're always in pretty good moods typically and all that. But got to talk to Tony La Russa for a bit this past spring training. He's been working with the White Sox. I think he's does something in their front office right now, but he was down there. And I remember going over and asking, I said, Mr. La Russa, would you mind signing a card? He's like, please, it's Tony. And I'm like, dude, you're a legend, and you're 40 years older than me. I have to call you Mister. It's just ingrained in me there. But I mentioned to him because he does a lot of work with animal rescue charities, and I mentioned that my wife and I had just adopted a cat a couple months ago from a cat cafe that works with cat rescue there, and he's like, you're good people. I'm like, that's hearing I'm a good person from Tony La Russa. That's a bucket list item right there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're in. I'm surprised. I knew he came back to manage the White Sox, but he's still involved. Is he out there hitting the fungo, or is he just kind of hanging in the dugout, barking orders from time to time, or what's his role now that it's scaled back?
He was just chilling on a golf cart at this one. I think he was going around kind of giving some pointers here and there, but checking out everything there. He does something in the front office. I don't remember what it was. It might be something in the player personnel area or something like that. But there's so many teams that'll bring in former players, former coaches, former managers as extra instructors out there, whether they're actually going out there and shagging fly balls and hitting fungos, or whether they're just hey, drop your elbow a little bit on that or something like that. But it's always cool seeing those guys around, especially, guys that I grew up watching, like Jermaine Dye was out there with the White Sox as well. Brett Butler was working as a bunting coordinator with the Reds, which was interesting because, he never played for the Reds or anything like that. Didn't really have any connections to any of the Reds coaches or anything like that. But there he is working with them. It's like, all right, that's cool to see. Good to know. And I had heard about it beforehand, so I chucked a couple of cards of him in there. I didn't see him actually out there, but that's what I was told was, he's a bunting coordinator or something. And you never know who's going to pop up there at spring training. And so it's kind of difficult, though, because, then I'm dragging around these binders that are 4 inches thick. They're just loaded with cards just in case I might see somebody out there. But the prep is half the fun sometimes.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, better prepare. You don't want to have a moment where you're like, oh man, I can't believe I left that. Yes. Always stay strapped there. Well, you talk about different ex-major leaguers helping out on teams. Our example here in Seattle is, of course, Ichiro, which has been he's just been a marvel. He's still taking batting, or maybe not batting practice, but he's shagging, like he's out and playing in right field. He keeps his arm in shape because he'll go over to Japan in the off season and pitch a full 9 innings to the girls team over there. I would still love to see Ichiro sign a 1-day contract. I'm sure he could slap a couple of hits up the middle. He's unique. I think he's going to resist the golf cart as long as possible, but Tony La Russa deserve that, right?
Definitely, yeah. And I actually saw Ichiro out there last year. I went to the Mariners camp for a day and came so close to getting him to sign for me. He was running back toward one of the fields, and I had him one-on-one. I'm just like, Ichiro-san, kudasai! And he just kind of waves and smiles and runs off. I'm like, no, I was that close. But Mike Cameron was out there, too. He's been working with them a lot, and I remember with him, he was out there shagging fly balls, and he drops an easy one, and he yells out, you suck, 44, and just, giving himself crap about that. But it's always fun seeing stuff like that. And you never know who's going to show up there. I've always hoped that, Edgar Martinez might pop in or somebody like that. I haven't been quite that lucky, unfortunately. But, I will say my biggest hit there from the Mariners this year was, of course, Cal Raleigh having the massive season this year. And he signed my rookie card at that day of practice there. So I've got that one and got it right before the big season there. So I was like, all right, that's cool to add in right there.
Yeah. Oh, well, Cal's great. In my previous endeavor, I was with the Tacoma Rainiers, the AAA affiliate of the Seattle Mariners, and got a chance to meet and be kind of background for an interview with Cal Raleigh. This was before he even broke into the big leagues. And boy, do I sure wished I paused and asked for a quick photo or signature. Of course, that wouldn't have been very professional of me, but man, could never have expected he would have hit 60 home runs. That was just a treat to watch for us Mariners fans and just the average MLB enjoyer.
Absolutely. Even as somebody has no ties to the Mariners, I'm sitting there like, all right, let's see him do this. Let's see him get to 60. Let's see him get to 65. Break all the records. Come on, Cal, let's do this. But I mean, yeah, I I want to say I think he deserved the MVP. It's like, I mean, okay, you can look at stuff like the war there and everything that. Yeah, Judge had that advantage on him, but when you get to a milestone number like 60, it's like, how can you not give him the award? And I think if it was switched, if Judge was a Mariner and Raleigh was a Yankee, Raleigh's running away with that MVP. So maybe a little bit of media bias there, but hey, maybe he'll have a chance to put up another big season this year and win it outright finally.
Yeah. Hey, you're preaching to the choir. Maybe they could have tampered with the votes and called it a 15-15 tie and have co-MVPs like it done a rare other instance before.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about, you mentioned it too, but the older guys, they were wearing a jersey for a whole season, or maybe they had two jerseys. That was it for the entire year. Nowadays, I mean, stars are recycling shoes, they're recycling jerseys after just one game. Personally, I mean, I'm surprised about that. I feel like most athletes are, maybe superstitious. And if you get something that's working, I mean, don't you want to stick with it? But maybe as I peaked as a high school pitcher, so maybe I'm not one to talk. But yeah, do you have any thoughts on how it's interesting, just all the equipment that these guys just fly through nowadays?
Absolutely. I mean, even like you look back at like if a guy, has a bat slip out of his hands and goes flying into the stands, well, used to. Now you've got, full netting, so it doesn't happen there. But they would go to such extremes, make sure they get that bat back and everything, if they're riding a hot streak or anything like that. And it's like, dude, you've got like 6 more of them in the dugout there. Just treat it like a broken one, let the fan keep it and go get a new one. But I mean, fortunately, at least with those ones, there's a little bit of a trade-off. Usually the fan will say, all right, here you go, and they'll get them a different one there, which it's like, all right, I'd take a trade like that. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. That's why I think, to me, modern jerseys kind of lose a little bit of something because you're not wearing them that entire season. You might have them, like you said, you might a single game, even just a part of a game, or maybe a month or two. But when you've got a full season of use on there, it's like that jersey has such a story to it at that point because, I mean, it's been on you for all the goals, all the hits, all the touchdowns, the fights, whatever it happens to be, and it's going to show all that kind of use on there. So ties into your photo matching there and everything, but you get a single game there, it's like you have to be really exact, know exactly what game it came from. Like, okay, yeah, now we can find that one. Whereas you get one's been used an entire season, it's like you've got a little bit wider of a range to look at there, but it also, it carries less of a story now to me these days.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something we see, it's fun for us to kind of track back the usage, more so maybe with like a batting helmet as opposed to a jersey. You can see all the nicks. And if you kind of go backwards in time, how they evolve, like, okay, that's the game where that, he tapped his helmet with his bat and got some pine tar up there. That's where that came from. You can kind of uncover the story, and we still do that with the modern jerseys. But for the most part, those are just 1 or 2 games, and then they're kind of on to the next. So it's interesting just how that's changed over time.
And I mean, I get why they kind of have to do it because I mean, number one, there's high demand for it. You've got not just the jersey collectors out there, but all the card companies are wanting them. So you've got to be able to meet that demand, and at the same time, keep the prices low for the card companies because if you've only got one jersey out there, they're going to be among the only ones who can afford to buy that thing every single year. It's going to keep stuff out of the hands of just ordinary collectors who want the entire jersey. But at the same time, they can't be affording to, go and throw around, $10,000 on a jersey every year, whereas they might be able to get one for a few hundred or something like that that's been used in only a couple of games. So I get there's a trade-off, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. It just, it feels like it kind of loses something over time like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a change for sure. Yeah, even if it is just a couple games, I mean, we saw a Shohei Ohtani bat that we were able to work on from either, I know we did one for 2025 and one from 2022, but one of those realized over almost $150,000. And it's, yes, it just can be insane. I mean, Ohtani is just skyrocketing in value. Obviously, he's got the Asian market that just is very desirable to collect. Are there any others? Obviously, Cal's one that kind of went bigger over here this year. I mean, the price of his game used bats, if you went to a Mariners game in April as opposed to September, those changed drastically. Yeah, in your Cleveland sporting world or any other teams that you follow, are there any players that you've been surprised by how their value has jumped, collectibles value has jumped recently, or any that you expect to be on the rise coming soon?
The biggest one, I mean, we mentioned Jose Ramirez earlier, and just his entire rise as a player has just been so surprising to me because I remember a couple of years ago, he's a perennial MVP candidate or potential MVP candidate. And I'm looking through there a few years ago, I'm like, how high of a prospect, how high was he ranked on like the Tribe's top 30 prospects? And he was never higher than like their number 4 prospect at any point. I remember when he was, I think in his second year, his rookie cards had just come out the year before. I had 2 copies of his rookie card, and he signed them for me before a game down in Arlington there. And I'm thinking, all right, yeah, this guy's going to be a backup infielder his entire career, but it's cool to add it because he's a Cleveland guy. And boy, was I surprised to see him explode the way he has there. So yeah, I mean, you never know who it's going to be and what's going to happen there. I mean, Ramirez to me is the prime example of that. And on the other hand, you've got just the opposite. You've got the can't miss guys who completely miss. I mean, how big was, Kevin Moss mania, 35 years ago when he absolutely tore it up late in the 1990 season with the Yankees, and then he just never could duplicate it after that. And I know so many people that, were buying his rookie cards at $5 each thinking, oh, this is cheap right now. And it's like, I get it for 20 cents now, 35 years later. So it's so tough sometimes to be able to figure out, who these guys are going to be. It's the next big thing. And it even goes through waves. You'll have a guy who's big for a while, and then nope, he just fell completely off. So it's unpredictable, and that's both the beauty and the horror of the hobby, both rolled all into one.
Yeah, but it's all part of the roller coaster, right? The excitement while you follow. And speaking of following now, I imagine, are you locked in on the Cavs? I know it's NBA and NHL season. What are you following mostly, or NFL playoffs? What are you dialed into at the moment?
Right now, it's a lot of NFL playoffs, even though the Browns are long out of it. I mean, that's every year, really, so I'm kind of used to that. But, yeah, checking out all the NFL games there, college football, of course, even with the Buckeyes getting out of it, that's still I'd love to see Indiana win it all, just because, I mean, speaking of teams that have come out of nowhere to do big things, Indiana being ranked number 1 is that. I did not have that on my bingo card to happen anytime in the 2020s, I can tell you that. But it's been cool watching that run. I'm not a huge basketball fan at all. I mean, I follow the Cavs a bit whenever they do well, but I mean, it's probably a sport that I watch the least out of any of the big 4 there. But I at least try to check out the Cavs and follow them a little bit. Hockey, it's the Avalanche and the Penguins are my 2 big ones here. My wife's the huge Avs fan, so I end up kind of following by osmosis through that. But follow the Penguins quite a bit there as well. That was my team growing up as a kid, and a little bit of soccer here and there whenever I can. I'm a Chelsea supporter over in England. And they're out of season right now, but coming up on the Australian Football League season will be starting up in the spring here, the fall down there, and hoping that North Melbourne, the Kangaroos, can claw their way out of the bottom few spots there in that league, but not too hopeful there. But it's a fun one to watch whenever I can catch it, so that's the big one where my attention is going to right now, which is probably, I'm sure there's no listeners out there that are going to be like, oh yeah, of course, the AFL, but hopefully, maybe there'll be a few. Hopefully there are a few, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a wide array. That's fantastic. I had a good friend from Australia who moved over here when he was young, and he was playing Australian rules football. So that's been my only introduction, not so much on the professional side, but that certainly is a fun sport.
It is. Yeah, it's I was an exchange student over there for about 3 weeks when I was in high school, and the first thing we did, we landed in Melbourne, and later that night went to see it was North Melbourne versus Melbourne at the Melbourne Cricket Grounds, which is it's a legendary venue. It's hosted the Olympics, it's hosted all the AFL events, all sorts of cricket events. And so getting to see the only game I've ever been to, getting to see it in that venue there, it's like, that was just really cool. And I've just followed it ever since then. I mean, haven't really played it all myself. I can't run worth anything. So I try to avoid anything that involves that. But I love getting out and kicking a ball around if somebody has one, which I actually need to buy a new one off Amazon here pretty soon. But yeah, it's fun to watch whenever I can. They've got a women's league now, which has been really great to see too. And in that one, at least, North Melbourne has won back-to-back premierships. So it's like, all right, we're halfway there at least. We got the women's side winning. So
yeah, that counts for something. Well, good. Well, you mentioned Ohio State, and I'm legally obligated to bring up the fact that I'm a Michigan Wolverine. And
that's all for the show.
Yep,
See you. We're out now. I'm kidding.
My final game as a student there was in 2021 when got to rush the field when they finally broke the 8-year streak of getting it handed to them by the Buckeyes. But of course, you guys turned that around this past year. Wanted to talk college used equipment. Do you have anything, or is that something that you'd be interested in getting into?
Possibly. I mean, I haven't really dug too deeply into that at all, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure Ohio State stuff goes for ridiculous amounts of money because, I mean, they're, one of the big programs. You get anybody in the SEC, Ohio State, and Michigan. It's like anything in there I'm betting is probably going to be pretty high up there. But like Boise State is my number 2 team. I've been a fan of them ever since the big win they had against Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl back around 2007 or thereabouts. Super fun game to watch. And somebody like that, it's like, all right, maybe I could find something Boise State somewhere along the line. So that's it's something I should look into more. I haven't really done a whole lot of digging into it, but it's like, you know what? I should keep an eye out, see if I can come across something there. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to get something from their Mountain West, and now that they're moving into the Pac-12, something afterwards, a little before and after.
Right.
Well, speaking of future, I wanted to discuss, where you see the hobby heading these next couple of years. Do you have any thoughts on kind of the big picture? Maybe this is something that you've discussed on the TTM cast as well, but just where the hobby's heading.
There's a lot of different directions you can go in. I know Fanatics, for example, has said their goal is to, get this 10x growth on it. I'm like, that I don't think is going to be sustainable. I don't think you're ever going to hit that point, but it's nice to have goals, guys, I guess. But I don't know. I think we're in a bit of a bubble in some areas. I know COVID really boosted a lot of stuff there for a while that had a lot of people getting back into the hobbies in various capacities. You had a lot of graded stuff just shot up in value. There's a lot more people that got involved in TTMing during that time as well. Sneaker collecting, I know, became a huge thing during that for a little while. Not even game used ones, just like, basic, hey, the new release from Nike is out, grab that. But I think there's a lot of different ways it can go. I think like I said, as long as you don't see any bubbles that take a big pop or anything like that, I think there's a lot of room for growth in here. I think there's always going to be room for growth, and it's like any other market. It's going to have its ups and downs. It's going to have its booms and busts. And this is why I say, once again, buy the stuff that you like more than anything, because you're going to have the ups and the downs. And you want to have something you're going to be happy with no matter what, whether it goes up, whether it goes down, whether it stays the same. You want to have something you're going to look at and go, hey, that's cool, and not look at it and go, boy, I wish I hadn't bought that, or, boy, I wish I'd sold it back then, or anything like that. It's just... That's the one thing where you can't go wrong, is if you stick to the stuff that you like. And so I think there's room for growth, but at the same time, I'm not one who's going to be super focused on it either.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think it'd be foolish to expect everything just to keep on going up and up and up without having any setbacks or natural up and downs. But yeah, just to make sure that you're following, you're collecting what you enjoy, and not buying a Zach Wilson, sorry, Zach, jersey just because you thought it was going to pay off as a massive investment, even though you had no ties to him or the Jets or anything like that. So did you have any kind of experience of really honing in on kind of the investment side and having it not turn out, or have you always stuck to that thought of just collecting what you enjoy?
I tend to stick to that, but I've got a friend who has done a little bit of that. He invested pretty heavily in... There's at least 3 players I can think of that I know he went all in on, and one of them panned out. It was Dirk Nowitzki, so good on him for picking that one. The second one was Joey Gallo, who, he's multi-time All-Star at least, but ultimately not quite what everyone was hoping that he would be. And the third one was Jairo Barris, he thought this guy was going to be the big prospect at shortstop for the Rangers. And I think it was a shortstop, might have been outfield. I don't even remember now. But either way, he totally just flamed out in Double-A, went back down to Low-A to convert to pitching, got back up to Double-A, and that was as far as he got at any point on there. He's like, yeah, I bought a ton of that dude, and I'm still sitting on it. I'm like, yeah, not too surprised there, but... It's going to be tough, trying to pick those prospects, for every Albert Pujols that comes out of nowhere, for every Mike Piazza that's, 62nd round pick, there's just as many first round burnouts in just about any sport there. So you got to be careful. You got to diversify it even. I mean, make up for those busts with the guys that boom out of nowhere.
Yeah. Hey, I'd say Dirk is a pretty big hit, and Joey Gallo ain't too shabby either. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, hey, as long as you make it big on one of those 3 like he did, then all right, you're doing all right for yourself. You can afford the loss on a guy like Jairo Barris then.
Yeah, you buy yourself some wiggle room. Right. Well, I want to touch on, I know we mentioned athletes earlier, but did you have any any other good stories about an athlete that, surprised you or changed your perception? Like, oh man, this guy's going to be, really tightly wound, but oh man, he's really down to earth, or even the other way around, or anything good?
I do have a couple the other way around there. Bobby Orr was the biggest one that's off the top of my head. And I had heard that he could be kind of tough to deal with, but this is back when I was, up in Boston, and going for all the hockey teams. And a friend of mine comes to town, and he said, yeah, well, meet up and go for the Panthers, Florida Panthers, who were in as well. He said, we'll hit them up tomorrow morning. I'm like, all right, cool, no problem. So I've got my alarm set for 9 o'clock, and my phone rings at 7. And it's like, why are you calling me this early? And pick it up, and he says, dude, get down here right now. Bobby Orr is in the hotel restaurant having breakfast. And I'm like, okay, we're springing up out of bed. It's a 15-minute walk to get down there. I think I made about 5 minutes, it seemed like, to make sure I got there. But I run down there, and yep, he's right there having breakfast. And so like, all right, we'll wait around outside here, and when he comes back out, we'll, wait and get him when he comes there. And like an hour later, he gets done, gets up, walks out, and heads right over toward the escalator where we're standing there. And so my friend goes up to him and says, Mr. Orr, would you mind taking a picture with me? And Orr just kind of looks at us both down his nose and says, I didn't know they let you people in here. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be great. And so I get the camera, and so my friend stands next to him and take the picture real quick, and Orr immediately books it for the escalator there. Before I get my picture with him, I'm like, Mr. Orr, could I get a picture with you? And he doesn't say anything. I said, Mr. Orr, could I get a picture with you down there? Because he's going down the escalator. He turns around and yells, you can't come down here, and storms off. I'm like, wow, okay, did not see that coming at all. It's like, I'd heard he was tough to get as a signer. He's when he signs by mail, at least, I think he's like $100 an item or something like that typically now, which is a little outside the price range, but I might go for it at some point just to cap off the big four hockey guys there. But I'd even heard of, like, if somebody tried to get him to sign at a place like that, like, in a hotel or mall or whatever, he would ask to see the receipt from the puck or the photo or whatever to see that you had just bought it right then after seeing him and you didn't, like, come down there stalking him or something like that. So he's tough, but with him, I can kind of understand it. He's, he got screwed over so badly by his agent when he was a player and everything. And he's one of easily the 4 greatest hockey players of all time. So it's like, all right, that's, he can afford to have an attitude, but there's so many other greats that don't. So it's like, it's kind of disappointing, but par for the course. You're going to have your good ones, you're going to have your bad ones there. So, yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like it's at least the minority. I'd imagine you have a lot more good than bad interactions in general.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like good stories and all that kind of stuff, but for the most part, it's because, there have been so many good ones, so many decent ones. It's hard to pick out just a specific one. It's the bad ones, the rare bad ones like that really tend to stick out in my mind. There's so many different Hall of Famers in baseball, in hockey, in football, a few basketball Hall of Famers that I've gotten that have been just so great about it, whether it's at, a paid signing where they're sitting at a table waiting for people, or whether it's, running into them randomly or something like that. Like in the non-sports world, Eddie Van Halen was super cool to completely randomly run into him after having dinner one night with her in Boston. I'm trying to think in hockey, who else? My wife's saying, oh, I've got a good one, so I got to see what she's got here for me that I'm completely blanking on right now. But, I've even like the NHL draft was here in 2018, and everybody who is anybody in the hockey world was around here for that. And so, like, Joe Sakic, getting to talk to him real quickly, Steve Yzerman, who, Steve Yzerman's known for kind of being a little bit of a jerk toward autograph collectors, and he was great there. Brendan Shanahan was there, and he was cool. And the big one that my wife just mentioned was Jared Bednar, the coach of the Colorado Avalanche. And this is a guy who's just come out of nowhere. Because, he never made above the ECHL as a player, but makes it up to the NHL as a coach. And he was, a very late and quick replacement because he got the job right after Patrick Waugh stepped down. And so it's like, who the hell is this guy? Where do they find him from? And they get him in his head coach there, and he turns the Avs around completely from this. They were picking in the top 5 for a bit. They suddenly get back into the playoffs there under Waugh, and then he's able to take them from just a playoff team into a Stanley Cup team there. Bednar does, and so running into him at the NHL draft. When I first saw him, he was on his way up to the team's suite there, and so he didn't really have time to sign there. But I knew he was coming back down, so I told my wife, all right, because she wants to meet the guy, because he is the savior of the Avs here lately, and so. Yeah, he comes down off the elevator there and stops over and signs for me. And she's like, oh, my God, thank you so much for everything you've done with the Avs. And just going crazy about it, gets a picture with him and everything. And he could not have been any nicer than he was there. He's got, like I said, my wife's standing, freaking out over that. And he just was super calm and cool about it. And yeah, just like I said, the times like that, there have been so many more of those than there have been the times where, someone tells me to F off or something like that. So it's like, I like that a lot more. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. Well, that's great that people recognize and appreciate the supporters and collectors as well.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, I think last thing, I think before we go, I want to ask, we've already mentioned
Yeah.
the two items that are missing from your collection. Do you have any other sort of holy grail items, or if you could have any, so maybe give us one of your holy grail on the card side, and then if you have any
Mhm.
game use item, what do you think that would be? Putting you on the spot.
Yep. Actually, I can tell you this one right off the top of my head. If money were no object and if I could be certain of the authenticity, for the 1972 top set that I mentioned I'm working on, Roberto Clemente is on 3 cards in that set. And I know there are authentic examples of signed copies of 2 of those 3 cards out there. I've got a couple friends that are authenticators, and they have seen good ones come through. They said they've also seen a lot more bad ones come through than good, but there are at least 2 of those 3 that are out there. So one of those would probably be the holy grail for my card stuff. When it comes to game used equipment, something like I said, I mentioned Boris Salming earlier. He is a particular favorite of mine. He's half Swedish and half Sami, and I'm part Sami in my background as well. And there are not very many Sami professional athletes out there, so that's why I kind of became a fan of his there. Well after his career was over, I found all this out and got into him. But anything of his game used, like I said, if money were no object, get me something from maybe like I think it was a Summit series or something like that in '76, I think it was, when he came back and was playing for Sweden in that. And the Canadian fans, even though he's playing for Sweden, gave him like a 5-minute standing ovation. So just because, I mean, they absolutely loved him so much in Toronto, even though he was on the other side in that one. So something like, his Team Sweden jersey from that event would be great. Just really anything from his career, just because, there's that little bit of a connection there. And technically, I mean, if I trace back through a couple of the genealogy websites, I think we're something like 11th cousins or something like that too. So it's like, oh, definitely got to get that now. But yeah, his stuff, I mean, it's expensive, but yeah, in a world where money is no object, Boris Salming game used jersey of some sort would probably be number 1 on my list.
Yeah. I love that. And that's great. That's, certainly a unique connection. If I asked 100 people, 1,000 people, I don't think anyone else would give that answer. But that's a great tie and great. Just to kind of summarize what collecting is all about, is bringing you closer to the sports, the players, and the moments that really connect with you and shape our lives. Right. I mean, if you're like me, you're looking forward to the game this weekend or the game tonight and everything. And, to the community that it brings as well. So, collecting is a big part of that.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much in my life that's revolved around it. 'Cause, I mean, just being a sports fan in general, I mean, it's like, it brings you closer to that. But a lot of my best friends and everything I've met because of sports collectibles. I mean, like I said, I mentioned, my wife winning her over with a Peter Forsberg signed puck. There was my first gift to her. One of my best friends, he and I go on a big road trip every 4 years to go to see a bunch of minor league baseball games and get autographs out there. And it's just, I have a goal of seeing all 50 states by the time I'm 50 years old. And doing that trip every 4 years has helped me knock a whole bunch of those off the list and just, hang out with my friends and do stuff like that, meet cool people there, and meet the people involved in the sports that I enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Drew. And Drew, yeah, really thank you for coming on. I want to give you the opportunity to talk more about the TTM cast, where our listeners can find you guys and what else you guys have in store for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Our website for the TTM Cast podcast can be found at ttmcast.com. Right now, we're doing shows every 2 weeks throughout 2026. Past episodes are all available on ttmcast.com as well, going from weekly back when Jeff was the host of it. We started doing monthly last year. That was kind of a little bit too extended there. So we decided, all right, let's go every 2 weeks, which we'll be doing this year. But we'll have a new episode coming this weekend. We'll be recording a new one on the 17th, I believe, of January. Should be coming out either 17th or 18th. And just, pretty much every 2 weeks after that, we try to update all of that. If you want to check out my own website, it's at dfwgrapher.com. It has info about all of my collections and everything. It's got a lot of other info and advice for collectors out there, especially those who are of the through-the-mail autograph variety of collectors. We've got a lot of great stuff on there for you there to help out. And yeah, check me out on those places. We're also on pretty much all of social media. I'm DFW Grapher on a lot of places. And you can find TTM Cast on Instagram as TTM Cast. And let's see, where else? I know we're on Blue Sky as TTM Cast, and we are We have a Twitter, but we don't really use it that much anymore. It was at Cast TTM. They had to switch it on there. Somebody was holding down the TTM Cast name for some reason. But it's easy enough to find us, though, either way on those. But yeah, Facebook, we've got a TTM Cast Facebook page there as well. And you can find it pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts, whether you go with Spotify. I think Apple Podcasts has it. I think YouTube might carry it as well. But at the very least, I know Spotify is my main one, and I do pretty much everything through there. So that's my first one I usually recommend.
Perfect. Well, yeah, we'll drop some more info in the description as well that everyone can take a look at. And yeah, Drew, thanks again for coming on. Really glad you could join us, share your perspective. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. This was fun. And hey, we'll get you on TTM Cast here pretty soon too.
Yeah, exactly. A home and home. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yeah. All right.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching and listening. Don't miss anything by subscribing to the Game Use Podcast on YouTube and following our social channels. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts. Stay tuned for more episodes of the Game Use Podcast by Resolution Photo Matching. Resolution is the leader in game use authentication. A ResMatch provides the highest level of accuracy and credibility in the hobby, consequently adding the most value to your memorabilia. Visit resolutionphotomatching.com or email info@resphotomatching.com to pinpoint your piece of sports history. Well, we missed last week coming out of the holidays, but we'll be back again next Thursday. We may dial back eventually to every other week, but the plan is every week going forward. We'll let you know about the schedule as well on our socials. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you guys soon.